I had a run-in with NBA YoungBoy, and let me tell you, it only lasted 3 days. By the end of it, he was telling his manager he wasn't feeling my energy, and honestly, I wasn't feeling his either. See, I've never worked for a kid before. My whole world runs with people who've lived in the streets, so imagine what happens when someone posing as a gangster meets real street credentials. Here's the wild part. YoungBoy's own security guard straight up exposed him. Called him a kid to his face and said he wasn't about that life. No sugarcoating, no theatrics. This guard essentially revealed that NBA YoungBoy's tough guy persona, everything he's been projecting online, is largely a facade. Behind the camera, his own crew is scared to move wrong, walking on eggshells around him. One of his guys literally ties his shoes and holds umbrellas over him like he's royalty instead of a peer in the streets. In short, the image YoungBoy puts out, the hardened, untouchable rapper, doesn't quite match the reality of his inner circle. He's fronting for the cameras, while those closest to him act like servants, terrified of crossing him. The discrepancy between his public persona and the behind-the-scenes truth is staggering, and this security guard just blew the lid off it. I don't care who's tying whose shoes. If it's gotta get done, it's gotta get done. That's the mindset Real recognizes Real brings into a room. And when that energy walked in, the whole situation with NBA YoungBoy almost spiraled out of control. This is the story of how YB's tough guy image completely unraveled in front of someone who's actually lived the life he only pretends to know. Let me break it down. NBA YoungBoy has spent years cultivating this hardcore gangster persona online, making it seem like he's untouchable. But the moment the real streets walked into his world, his act started to crumble. Enter Samson Dredd, a security guard who isn't just some bodyguard on a paycheck. This man comes straight out of the Virgin Islands and has been in real combat situations. He survived being shot 11 times before ever stepping foot in the US, and he's been running security for over a decade, protecting names like Moneybagg Yo, Megan Thee Stallion, and Sexy Red. Dredd knows the difference between a real one and someone fronting. When Dredd first met YoungBoy, he immediately sensed something off. In his own words, he didn't vibe with YB, and the feeling was mutual. When YoungBoy's manager said YB wasn't feeling Dredd either, the veteran guard didn't flinch. He looked YB square in the face and told him, "I've never worked for a kid before." No hesitation. No fear. Straight up called him a kid. Think about that. One of Louisiana's so-called hardest street rappers being labeled a child by his own bodyguard. And YB?
He didn't retaliate.
Deep down, he knows he isn't really the street soldier he projects online. But Dredd's not the only one seeing through the illusion. Behind the scenes, YB's inner circle is walking on eggshells. The man has serious anger issues, and his crew knows that a single misstep could have serious consequences. One of his closest associates, NBA Herm, literally ties his shoes and holds umbrellas over his head like he's royalty. These grown men are performing servitude, financially and emotionally dependent on YoungBoy, afraid to speak up or risk losing his favor. It's not friendship, it's a power dynamic laced with psychological manipulation. Dredd saw all of this immediately and wasn't having it. Game recognized game, and he wasn't seeing any from YB. The facade of toughness, the bravado online, all fell apart in front of someone with real street credentials. It exposed a truth that's been hiding in plain sight. YoungBoy's gangster persona is performative, and those around him are more like actors in his constructed reality than peers in a brotherhood. In short, this situation isn't just wild. It's a case study in image versus reality, power dynamics, and how a fronted persona can crumble when confronted by someone who's genuinely lived the life you claim to know. Nobody around YoungBoy can speak their mind or challenge him without consequences. That's classic manipulation, not leadership. DJ Academics even witnessed this firsthand during a visit to YB's home. He saw YoungBoy physically strike his own friends just for acting out of line in front of others. These are supposed to be his day ones, his ride-or-die crew, yet he treats them like children. That isn't gangster. It's insecurity masquerading as authority, a man overcompensating because he knows deep down he's fronting. The rumors only add fuel to the fire. Word on the street is that YB punishes his crew in extreme ways. even controlling their access to food when they displease him. Take Lil Dump, for example. Fans speculated about a photo showing him with a busted lip, immediately linking it to YoungBoy. True or not, the fact that the assumption was so readily made says everything about YB's reputation behind closed doors. Now, consider Samson Dread's perspective and why it matters so much. Dread isn't some random bodyguard. He comes from the Virgin Islands, where the rules of street life are unforgiving. You can't just jump to another city when things go sideways. You survive or you don't. He explained that security professionals in the industry generally fall into 3 categories: ex-military, off-duty police, and street-hardened veterans. Each brings value, but Dread emphasized that street guys like him operate on an instinct and understanding that can't be taught. Surviving real shootouts, failed deals, and territorial disputes develops a level of intuition most people will never grasp. Dread himself comes from authentic power. His father was a real boss in the islands. He can spot the difference between someone who talks about authority and someone who actually commands it. Meeting YoungBoy, Dread immediately recognized a gap. This wasn't someone who truly understood or embodied the streets. YB's bravado didn't hold up in the presence of someone who'd lived that life. Contrast that with Dread's experiences with other artists. Moneybagg Yo, he said, is the real deal, a professional who earned respect and trust. Sexy Red, humble, grounded, and able to separate business from performance. Megan Thee Stallion, focused, professional, no unnecessary games, treating her security team as partners in a business transaction rather than pawns in a power play. Authenticity draws other authentic people. Fake energy repels it. The saga with YoungBoy only lasted 3 days before Dread and his team were shown the door, supposedly because YB didn't like their energy. But Dread wasn't fazed. He knows the value of working with the right clients and walking away from those who are fake or toxic. That's real leadership, setting boundaries, holding your ground, and refusing to compromise your principles for a paycheck. What really stands out is how Dread operates. His approach isn't about flexing authority or demanding control. It's about understanding the dynamics, reading people, and recognizing genuine energy. And when he meets someone who's fronting, it's immediately apparent. In this world, that clarity separates the real from the fake, and Dread doesn't waste his time with those who are merely pretending. After his brief stint with YoungBoy, Samson Dread became far more discerning about who he chose to work for. He realized quickly that not every paycheck is worth the stress, especially when the client is more about posturing than substance. Real professionals understand their own value. They don't bend their standards for anyone, no matter how much money or clout is on the table. Dread also shared eye-opening insights about the security world that most people rarely see. He described how some artists expect bodyguards to be on call from sunrise to well past midnight, shuttling them to gyms, malls, barbershops, dinner, studio sessions, and clubs, all in a single day, yet only compensate them for a fraction of the effort. That's exploitation, plain and simple. Protecting someone's life carries risks and liabilities most people can't even imagine, which is why true professionals demand 6-figure salaries for their work. He didn't stop there. Dread spoke on respect and the code that real street veterans live by. In the Virgin Islands, he said, "You defend the weak against the strong. You don't prey on the weak." That was a thinly veiled critique of YoungBoy's approach to his own team. Real street credibility isn't built by intimidating friends. It's earned through action, integrity, and character. Someone like Dread, who has protected vulnerable people from genuine threats, sees bullying the people around you for ego's sake as weak, not impressive. Meeting someone like Dread was a rude awakening for YoungBoy. He was accustomed to fear and compliance, people walking on eggshells around him, yet Dread didn't flinch. Money, fame, and bravado meant nothing to a man who had faced true danger and survived. That lack of intimidation exposed YoungBoy's persona for what it really was, a crafted image rather than authentic street credibility. The age factor compounded the issue. When Dread said he had never worked for a kid before, he wasn't just talking about chronological age. It was about maturity, emotional regulation, and the ability to manage conflict. Survival in high-risk environments requires composure, and YoungBoy's impulsive, reactive tendencies made him a poor candidate for someone of Dread's caliber. This scenario illuminates the stark contrast between online gangsters and real street veterans. YoungBoy has built a career on the illusion of being untouchable and dangerous, but when confronted with someone who has genuinely lived that life, his act collapsed. Psychologically, his need to control and intimidate those around him stems from deep insecurity, an overcompensation for the fact that he's not truly as hardened as he projects. His aggression toward friends, the intimidation, and the manipulation are classic hallmarks of a bully masquerading as a gangster. In the end, Samson Dread didn't just walk away. He revealed the truth. YoungBoy is a talented rapper with undeniable skills, but his reputation as a feared, untouchable street figure doesn't hold up when faced with someone who has genuinely earned those stripes. Real street credentials don't lie, and when the facade meets reality, the mask falls off. Samson Dread didn't buy any of YoungBoy's act, and he wasn't shy about calling it out. That's likely why their working relationship ended almost immediately. The way YoungBoy treats his own friends, the power plays, the need to assert dominance over people who rely on him financially, doesn't reflect real leadership. It's not confidence or respect. It's insecurity masquerading as toughness. True street credibility doesn't come from bullying the people around you or putting on a show for social media. Real bosses earn respect through action, integrity, and loyalty, not through intimidation or theatrics. Dread walked away with his honor intact, while YoungBoy's facade crumbled in front of someone who actually understands the streets. It's a lesson that stings but needed to be said. NBA YoungBoy may be thriving in the music world, but when it comes to the authenticity of the street life he raps about, he got exposed. This isn't conjecture. It's someone with real-life experience recognizing a fake. The takeaway is clear. You can fool the fans, the media, and even yourself for a time, but when someone with genuine experience steps into your space, all that staged energy is revealed instantly. YoungBoy learned that lesson the hard way. For his audience, it's a reminder to differentiate between entertainment and reality. Talent doesn't automatically equal authenticity, and in the streets, or in life, real recognizes real.